Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Pardon me. Hope y'all doing okay today. So, I figured I've shared some driving stories. I've shared some uh, working at the service center stories. So I figured why not share some of my personal tickets. The first speeding ticket that I ever got. Now, I understand I've been pulled over a bunch of times for many ridiculous things, some of which were me breaking the law, some of which were overzealous cops or vehicles matching the description of. But I've been pulled over for a bunch of things. But and I'd been pulled over once or twice at this point. And another thing to understand is the first ticket that I got, my first vehicle, there was exactly one of those in town. It was a F-150, had some, not necessarily custom work to it, like it was stock ride height, stock wheels and tires, but it had some things done to it cosmetically that did make it stand out a bit compared to other similar trucks. Well, anyway, one of the things that happened is I owned that truck. That truck got wrecked. Bought my second truck. I decided I'm selling this turd. And again, there was only one truck in town like that. There was one that was similar but not identical. And then there was my third vehicle, and I bought that. It was a 99 Expedition white, two-wheel drive. It was an XLT with like a premium package in it. Pretty nice vehicle. Rode really good. One of my favorite vehicles I've ever had. Overall. The only thing I would have changed about it is four-wheel drive. And matter of fact, that's why I got rid of it, was to get something four-wheel drive for the lawn business. Anyway, so I'm driving that. I am 20 years old. I get a phone call from a buddy of mine. He's one town over. It's late at night, but I'm working night shifts, so he just caught me at a night off, or my early night getting off work. Calls me. He's like, "Hey, need your help." I'm like, "What's going on, man?" He's like, "Well, went out, got a little too plastered to drive. I'm too drunk to drive." "Okay, where you at?" Gives me an address, gives me directions. This was before GPS on cell phones was a big thing, so okay. Head up that way and get you. He's like, "Don't worry about it, I got you gas money," or whatever. So this was back when gas was, $3.54 a gallon in '08. So driving a big SUV wasn't cheap. So he agrees to pay me back, and all right, fine. Going up to get my buddy. Head on up there, and where he was one town away, but the road, the time it was nearly completely undeveloped between the two towns, and dead straight, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And so, I go into whatever residential area he's hanging out at with other friends, pick him up, pull out, get out onto the main road, and I'm just like, man, I just realized I gotta hurry up because I gotta get up at a reasonable hour tomorrow. So I, may have got a little aggressive with the accelerator, but again, I'm in a big V8 SUV, so it's not going to be too insane. And I just get up to speed and set the cruise. Didn't even look at the speedometer. And there's zero traffic out at 1 in the morning on this stretch of road. Get moving. Pointed back to the house. We're coming into town, and we're right before the speed limit changes. So he looks up and he sees a cop, and I'm like, I ain't worried about him. And then I look down, I'm running like 10, 12 over, something like that. And I'm like, well, so I just cut the cruise. I wasn't trying, if I nosedive, I know he's going to know what I was up to. So I just, cancel the cruise control, see what happens. Sure enough, this cop comes whipping around. I'm like, well, crap, he's got me dead to rights. So I'm aggravated at myself, because if I just looked at the speedometer when I got out on the main road, I'd know, hey, you stupid, slow it down, you're the only idiot out here. And so I whip into a parking lot real quick to wait for him. Well, he's convinced that I was attempting. And okay, so I whip into this parking lot, and the truck is in park. This cop is convinced that I was trying to run. He's like, you went around that turn real quick. I'm like, officer, I was just irritated at myself. I figured I'd go ahead and park and wait for you. He's like, well, why were you running? I'm like, I wasn't running. Why were you running? I wasn't running. This goes back and forth for a few times, and I almost said, I don't know if this truck is as fast as that cop car, but if I was running, you and I wouldn't be talking at this moment. We'd still be going somewhere. Almost said that, but I didn't. So he proceeds to search me and my buddy, just pat us down real quick. I did have a gun in the car, and interesting thing is I knew the state gun law better than he did, because he accused me of illegally possessing a firearm, and turns out I wasn't. So anyway, we proceed to get patted down. He has me sit on the hood of his cop car for a few minutes. I tell him everything he will find on my person before he can get to it. So, I've got like some wadded up paper receipts, house keys, my car keys, pocket knife, wallet, everything he's going to find on me before he can get to it. Does the same thing with my buddy. Gets apparently every officer on the beat that night out there. Searches my entire truck. It's a 3-row SUV. I tell them everything they're going to find in that truck before they can get to it. The only thing that was the least bit interesting is I had bought a teddy bear for a girl I was interested in at the time. And I had I forget if it's 2.5 or 5 gallon size things of peanut oil in the truck, because it was right before Thanksgiving and we were going to fry turkey. Also, I had, just like some random recovery straps and a toolbox and some spare chainsaw chains and things like that in the truck, but there's nothing in there worth finding. I tell him where everything in that truck's going to be. I tell him exactly what he's going to find, him and his buddies are going to find, long before they can find it. Can't find anything. He wants to call my dad to corroborate my story on that firearm. He did at 2 in the morning. My dad answered. Story corroborated. I'm legal to have this weapon. Has me do a field sobriety test since I was the one driving. I'm sober. And then when his buddies leave, he talks to me for 5 minutes and says, look, you're trying to run. I'm like, officer, I wasn't. He's like, shut up, you're trying to run. Okay. Here's your ticket. You can pay it by mail or by the clerk's office. Here's the money you got to drop off. Okay, fine. Get the money. A couple weeks later, go to the clerk's office. I have, I had stuff going on. I couldn't get down there right away, but I get down there, have time to spare to get this fine paid. Get to the clerk's office. They say, you can't pay this. I'm like, well, I have money here. You don't want to take it? No, it's not that. You can't pay this ticket. Well, why is that? Because it's reckless driving. I'm like, okay, so he checked right here. Payable fine. Show up here. Pay the ticket. He's like, well, they make this mistake all the time. You can't pay reckless driving. You can pay careless driving. Well, crap. So I have to go to traffic court. Now, I work night shift. They tell me I got to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get done at work somewhere around, I think I was getting done at 5 o'clock. So I come home, catch a cat nap, go to court. And I figure, hey, I'm getting in early. I'll be done. They do this alphabetically. My last name starts with P. So I get to sit through a ton of arraignments, from everything to traffic violations. I apologize about the noise, folks. The lane shift, I got to be on the rumble strips for a minute. I'm going to try to scoot over, though. So I listen to all sorts of arraignments, get through listening to all that stuff. Finally, my name gets called. Now, I've got to stop right there to tell you another side to this story. Years prior, from the time I would have been about 13 or 14 to 17 is when I stopped, I think. I was involved in something in my state called teen court. And essentially what it was the final phase of the juvenile justice system in misdemeanor offenses where no one got hurt and things like that. And basically what you do is it was the sentencing phase. So you've already established guilt or innocence of the juvenile. This happened in court dates prior. And this was a bunch of high school kids coming together and arguing the sentence of this child for a misdemeanor offense. And the majority of it was, just drugs and things like that. Or there was also some truancy. There was things like that. Just things that kids do. A little vandalism. Nothing serious. Well, anyway, so I was involved and I knew the judge. We'll call her Judge Kim. So I have been in this courtroom twice a month for 3 years. I end up stopping the program. I wasn't in trouble or anything. I was just, going there to be a bailiff or a juror or to argue a case or whatever it was. So anyway, I go to this courtroom and I see Judge Kim for 3 years. Now, fast forward, I'm in Judge Kim's courtroom as an adult with this speeding ticket. And I think, oh man, this is going to be great. Get up there on the stand, Mr. Porter, how are you doing today? Blah, blah, blah. None of that happens. Bailiff calls my name. Would you stand up? Okay, so I stand up. And I'd seen her whole routine here. So normally when the bailiff or the clerk called the case, she would be sitting at her desk and she'd flip a paper and look up just to make sure someone was there and whether or not they were to issue a bench warrant. And then she'd go back to looking at her papers and flip and, kind of glance over everything real quick. That was her routine when they called a court case. Well, when they called my name, she's looking down at her papers, she looks up, looks back down, and then looks up and locks eyes with me the whole way up to the podium. I go up there. Everything went exactly the way that it did with every other traffic citation, with the exception of when I get done, she's explaining the traffic court to me. I can go, or driving school that I can go to keep my insurance rates down and to remove the points from my license and how to sign up for that. And then failure to appear, I have to pay another fine and how I can pay my fine and all this and that. Okay. The only exception to her normal routine for traffic violations like this is she told me, "It is good to see you again." As I'm walking away and I spin around, I said, "It's good to see you too, ma'am." She's like, "I never want to see you in my courtroom again." I go, "Yes, ma'am." The irony of this, that happened when I was 20. A few years later, I get called to jury service in that county. And I am a juror in her courtroom on one of the cases. I don't remember if I actually sat through the entire jury duty. Turns out I worked with one of the law firms back in the teen court days. So they run, "Do you know such and such a lawyer?" And I'm just sitting there, "Yep, I know this one. Oh, I know that one. I know this one. I know that one. I know people affiliated with this firm." So I'm sitting in the jury panel, but they call my name for the jury selection. And I sit down in the jury box, and she walks into the courtroom, and she realizes it's me, and we just kind of have this little silent smile with each other. So, yeah, I never got one over on the judge, which was frustrating to me, because allegedly my grandmother on my mom's side, who I never got to meet, had a terrible lead foot, and apparently knew something about the judge, because she'd end up in traffic court all the time, and always get them dismissed. She'd show up to traffic court and go up and talk to the judge. Case dismissed every time. So apparently some things don't run in the family. Catch y'all next time, folks. Thanks for listening.